Welcome everyone. I'm so excited about this opportunity. Wanted to introduce myself before I introduce our special guests. My name is Christine Monska. I'm the Youth Leadership Program Manager with the Clubhouse Network, and one of the programs that I oversee is the Alumni Program. And really, again, excited to be here today with Estefany Ollerkone. She is an alumna of the Expo Center in California, and now she's the Human Resources Coordinator with Bustle Digital Group. And I'm going to hand it over to her to introduce herself. And then a few of her colleagues are going to be joining us in a few minutes.
Yes. Hello. My name is Estefany Ollerkone. I am the HR coordinator at BDG. As Christine mentioned, I used to be I'm an alum of the Clubhouse, and also I used to be a media mentor at Expo Center with Astrid, who's actually here. Hi, Astrid. And we're super excited to really kick off this partnership. I think the biggest thing is to make digital media accessible to different communities everywhere. And that's been one of my goals at BDG, to make sure that we reach different diverse candidates when it comes to telling these stories, because writing it comes from different perspectives, it comes from different experiences. So my whole goal has been, when we do recruitment, when we do outreach, we want to reach all the people that represent this world. We want it to be diverse, we want it to be inclusive. So I have two of my colleagues that are going to be joining. One of them is Iman, she's a sex and relationship editor, and Molly, who is the art director for BDG, and they're actually joining now. Hi, Molly.
Hello, how is everyone?
We have Iman that's also going to be joining, and I'm going to be sharing a slide as we speak, but this is all just to introduce you to BDG, Bustle Digital Group, introduce you to our brands, and some of the amazing people that make up BDG, and the work the people who are behind the work that we see when we go onto bustle.com, when we go into our different lifestyle brands, and also just if you have any questions about digital media, about art direction, about all of these different things, you get to ask that to people who are in the field. So once Iman joins, she should be joining soon, we'll dive into the conversation. But for now, I'm going to share my screen and pull up a slide that I have. Okay, could you see it? Did you all see the slides? Awesome. So, a career in the digital arts. Really, I feel like when you think about digital media, automatically people think of journalism. Hi, Mon. But it's so much more than that, and I'm just super excited for you all to meet an amazing editors and art directors at BDG. So they can introduce themselves, but I want to quickly just tell you guys about BDG. So it's the fastest growing publisher in modern media. We work with creators to uncover issues and stories that matter through the lens of authenticity, inclusivity, and conversation. We have about 9 leading brands now. We just did a partnership with W Magazine. I don't know if you're all familiar with it. We have 84 million readers and 42 million social fans. So we have Bustle, Elite Daily, Inverse, Input, Mike, Nylon, Romper, W, and the Zo Report. And you'll learn a little bit about some of them today through the work that these amazing women that are here with me do. And then just to introduce you a little, you can all introduce themselves, but Iman, if you want to go first.
Hey guys, my name's Iman. I am currently the Sex and Relationships editor at Bustle, but I've also worked at Elite Daily as the Associate Sex and Dating editor. Basically, I cover a wide range of topics from sex, dating, relationships, singledom, to sexuality, gender identity, consent education, and every day looks different for me. I manage a team of 5 writers, and we could be covering anything from a heartfelt piece about frontline workers and their relationships during the pandemics, and how long distance is impacting transatlantic couples who are separated because of social distancing, to sext ideas inspired by the WAP music video, or, you know, sex positions for your twin size bed because you're living with your parents again. So I love what I do, and I love getting to talk to readers about how they receive the work and what they want to see more of. So I consider myself very, very lucky.
Molly.
Hi guys, my name is Molly. So I am an art director at BDG, and I primarily work in the branded content side of things. So my background is actually in advertising, and I started working with BDG about 3 years ago. So working on the media side, it's essentially like advertising as well as editorials. So my job is to work with the editors as well as our partners, like brands. We have a lot of great companies that want to advertise on all of our platforms. So I'm kind of the go-between person to make sure that all of the visuals are aligning, and working to create custom features, as well as all of the content that goes on our social platforms. So Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, just really making sure that all of those pieces of content are aligning visually and work within the full look and feel for the brand.
Yeah, and then can you tell Iman, I've heard your story so many times, but I want them to hear it too, a little bit of how you got started. I know that, you know, you just tell us your background. Did you go to school for journalism? How did you figure out that, you know, you wanted to tell stories, write stories? And a lot of times I feel like your own personality has come out in those, and your identity, and you're super open about that. So tell us about that too.
Yeah, of course. Well, I always knew I wanted to write in some capacity. As a child, growing up in New York with two immigrant parents from Iran, I really found myself escaping into young adult literature and teen magazines. I feel like in many ways the protagonists of YA Lit raised me, and I always knew that like my path would take some form of writing and giving back to a genre that gave so much to me. For a long time, I thought that the form that would take would be lyricism. I am a songwriter, and I've been writing music for a really long time, but I also started freelancing from a young age. My first op-ed was published when I was 14, and it was a op-ed about Islamophobia in America for the Huffington Post. And so I always was sort of like juggling these two different passions, which was like writing prose and fiction and poetry and songwriting and music. I went to college and studied creative writing and music comp, a mix that everyone told me I was crazy to study because it's not known for being like the most profitable. My parents are both Persian, so they gave me three options: doctor, lawyer, scientist, I believe. Instead, I went for music and creative writing. But I quickly found my footing. I kept freelancing, performing music at bars. I wrote for our feminist lit mag, and really, really found myself grounded in coming of age stories and pubescent writing. I did my honors thesis on the 9 stages of female puberty. It was a creative hybrid thesis. I titled it Vagina Logs. And basically, I felt as if that was the beginning of my sex and relationships journey, even though I did not know it at the time. When I graduated college, my plan was to pursue music 100%. I moved back in with my parents in New York, and I performed at bars 5 nights a week and continued to write on the side. And this continued until I came to the realization that pursuing life as a musician made me a lot more happy in theory than it did in practice. So when I found out that Teen Vogue was hiring an editorial assistant, I jumped at the opportunity and ended up, within a few weeks landing that job. And I started as an assistant at Teen Vogue and worked my way up. When I was there, I had the pleasure of writing for both the digital brand and the magazine, and really getting to know how the industry works, talking to people from all different departments. And I was there until the magazine folded. From there, I went to Bustle. I actually started at Bustle as a fellow. I worked for the lifestyle team, reporting to the sex and relationships editor, and really started doing a lot of identity-based lifestyle content, and fell in love with the sex and relationships vertical because it really encompasses so much, but inspires so much empathy. I feel like sex and relationships is a topic that everybody, it feels very equitable because everybody needs to learn how to communicate better, which I personally love because it allows me to connect with a wide range of readers. So becoming a sex and relationships writer was the first step on that journey for me. When I found out that Elite Daily, which was also at the BDG family, was hiring an associate sex and dating editor, I applied for that position, and it was there that I really got to edit long form for the first time, oversee a team, work with other editors to brainstorm large form content packages around Pride and coming out, and Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and Masturbation Month, and other really wonderful umbrellas. And that was the work that really informed my current position, which is Sex and Relationships Editor at Bustle. Really amazing full circle moment for me because I, of course, started my career at Bustle reporting to the Sex and Relationships Editor. And I'm really proud of the work that my team has done, especially surrounding Bustle's relaunch, which happened about a month ago. We've really worked to make sure that Sex and Relationships has its finger on the current pulse of everything from the news cycle to the pop cultural zeitgeist. We really mix our service with witty observations about our cultural status and the way that there's the general generational divide between communication and relationships and hookup culture and all that fun stuff. And I think that there is no greater and more important and telling work than the sex and relationships and wellness beats right now, because it really paints a fruitful picture of what it's like to be Gen Z to millennial in today's world. So I'm very, very happy with it.
And I pulled some articles here that you've shared. I think this is great that it shows exactly all the fun things that you write about, life after lust. College men are finally asking for consent, but only because they're afraid of being Me Too'd. And then the famous one, the Welcome to the Chris Como Hive, You're Late. I love this one, but I want to pull them up quickly just to show a little bit of, some of the work that you do. Aside from editing, you also write, and I think that is exciting to have your voice also, aside from you making space and allowing other writers to write and continue the work that you enjoy doing. So we have some articles here. You could all read. They're really great. And then Molly, you tell us a little bit about you and what you do. I have some of your work up too.
Cute. So as I said before, I am an art director for branded content. I came to this, I had always loved magazines and been obsessed with the layout and design. I even in high school, I used to create my own zines, like literally cutting up other magazines and Xeroxing them and like passing them out at school. I was always really passionate about that. And I went to school for art and design. I got my BFA at FSU. I grew up in Florida, and I never really saw myself ending up in New York. I kind of jumped at the chance. One of my friends was moving and was like, hey, I have this room, come with me, and ended up in New York. Had no idea what I was doing, but I did have my design BFA, and so I started working in advertising. I was freelancing at a lot of different agencies, which was really great experience, but like agency culture is kind of very fast paced. I worked at 3 different agencies for about 2 years, and I just got totally burned out. Working in New York in the hustle, I actually met a writer who was at Bustle, and she was like, you know, we have this position coming open, you should at least try, even though I didn't really have experience working directly for a magazine. And branded content ended up being like exactly what I wanted to do. It was a tie between being more creative and having those like emotional stories that Iman talked about, and also the background of working for advertising. So what you see on this screen is actually some photos from an Adidas partnership that we did. And this was really fun because it was, all of the looks were inspired by decades and fashion through the decades. So you can see on the right, it's 70s, and on the left is supposed to be 80s, I believe, like 80s video star. It was a very fun campaign to work on just because I got to do some retro fashion. As an art director, I'm basically working on this with an editor from concept to the final feature, as well as like hiring the crew. This took at least 20 people to make when you think about the models, and the actual photographer on set, the makeup artist. It's a lot of people, and so my job is essentially to oversee the full production.
Awesome. And then I know you both talked a little bit about, you know, what you did. Is there anything in the journey that you feel like really aligned you to this moment? I know, Iman, you talked about, you know, you used to help the sex and relationship editor. And then Molly, you mentioned, you know, you did the agency that didn't work. Is there anything else, like, did you guys do any internships or any fellowships that helped you prepare for this role, or was it just something that you just found along the journey?
I'll go first. I would say that it was moving to New York, which seemingly was kind of an accident for me, but all of the people that I met along the way, I did have a few internships with agencies, and my network just grew naturally. I think that it really is a business of the people that you know, and working on other photo shoot sets, I was meeting a lot of crew, and yeah, my portfolio just kind of expanded that way.
Yeah, I did a lot of editorial internships when I was in college. But not for anything that I think would necessarily correlate with the vertical that I now oversee. I worked for a literary journal called The American Reader, and my duties were, you know, like cleaning up the apartment that we all worked out of and helping my managers like navigate the internet. And I worked as an editorial intern for Surface magazine, which is a design-based magazine. And while each internship was very, very helpful in that I gained a certain set of skills and became more confident working in the magazine world. And I absolutely think that Molly's right that you should treat every connection that you make as if, you know, this person is going to be like a lifelong fruitful connection that you're going to have. Like, treat everyone with respect, be polite always, be kind whenever you meet people. You never know when you'll cross paths with them again. But yeah, I mean, I think that when I asked myself why I ended up in sex and relationships, at first glance, it feels somewhat random, but the truth is I've always been very fascinated by helping people, especially women and non-binary people, feel more at home in their bodies, because that's something that I struggled with when I was younger, you know, as a woman, as a Middle Eastern American woman, but also as a young girl. And I think that all of the writing that I did up until I started editing sort of correlated with that that question. You know, I was very, very interested in identity writing. My first piece that I ever wrote for Teen Vogue was about being hairy in America, and how hair is actually very, very political, and that the American standard of beauty is actually very, very subjective, and exploring that through the lens of a child. And I think that that is what really started my introduction to what is now referred to as wellness. And I think that wellness really encompasses parts of sex and relationships, because the most important relationship that you foster is the one you have with yourself. And that's something that I also take really seriously within my work. So I think in many ways it's like a large interconnected web, even though I didn't plan for any of it. And yeah, I mean, although each of those internships felt at certain points pointless, because I was like, oh, well, I don't want to go into the design world. Like, I don't want to be pulling cigarettes out of couch crevices forever. They taught me so many important skills, like communicating when you don't understand something, being able to turn out copy it very quickly, coordinating with different departments to make sure everyone's on the same schedule, skills that now help me as a manager.
And you both touched a little, well, Molly, you touched a little bit on burnout. And I think that that's something that we all experience in different times, especially now we're in a pandemic. And I think that we all kind of, sometimes we forget that. But, you know, I think a lot of us experience that sometime in our career, maybe a couple of times. What would you say, how do you get through that burnout when you have, or what advice would you give if anyone is experiencing that?
It's tough. I think definitely create space for yourself in terms of personal projects. So even though when I was working for advertising agencies, I was working really long hours, but I still had a few projects, you know, again, just going back to networking and people that I had met along the way and developed friendships with. We had just side projects that we wanted to work on. And so I would do that on the weekends instead of maybe, you know, going out or doing typical 20-something activities. I was working on side projects, and those opened my network up even more, friends of friends. And I think, yeah, every opportunity, every person that you meet, you should take it really seriously, especially, I mean, I'm lucky to be in a place like York, where a lot of the people that I was interacting with were in the field in some way. But yeah, I think side projects helped me so much through my burnout at my actual job. And then opened me up to a lot more creative opportunities down the line.
Yeah, I mean, burnout is a very, very common phenomenon in media and in a lot of other creative industries because there's a glorified work culture that I'm hoping is now growing defunct around, you know, if you're not constantly exhausted, you're not working hard enough. And especially at some companies, not necessarily BDG, this idea that you're replaceable, and if you aren't happy, they can quickly find someone else who would be so grateful to have the opportunity and take your place. That's something I really found facilitated burnout when I was first entering the industry, and you're, underpaid and overworked and encouraged to take on more work in order to prove that you have what it takes to make it in the industry, especially at these larger, more corporate companies that don't get to know each individual on a personal level, which BDG certainly is not. At my first job, I worked like 24/7, didn't really have any boundaries between me and my boss, and it totally manifested in every single way. I was growing more and more anxious. I started having, like digestive problems, developing stress rashes, the whole 9 yards. And what I'll say it taught me is that you need to listen to your body. If you're having a physical reaction to an emotional, mental experience, take that as a sign that you need to step back and prioritize your health, because you're never going to be able to help the people around you and quote unquote prove your worth if you don't feel worthy and you yourself are not prioritizing your health. That would be my first piece of advice around burnout, because you don't want to push yourself off the brink. It's not going to serve the people around you, and it's not going to serve you. And I think my second is, I think as an industry and as a society as a whole, we need to normalize quitting as a form of strength, not weakness. If you know when to draw the line, when you need to take a mental health day, when you need to take a break, that is actually a very strong choice and, proof of your conviction. But I think that we're raised to think that quitting or taking a break is the equivalent of giving up, which is inherently weak. And I think that's really, really unhealthy and toxic, because there's so much strength in knowing when you need to walk away, when you need to try something new for yourself, when you've reached the capacity of all that you can take. If I hadn't known when to take a break previously, when to listen to my body, I never would have ended up at Bustle. I never would have taken a step back and considered doing a fellowship, even though I had already worked in the industry. And that fellowship led to more possibilities and opportunities that I could have ever imagined. So yeah, if you're experiencing burnout, don't ignore it and work past it. Listen to your body. It won't fail you.
Thank you. That's perfectly said. I love that. What would you say is your most exciting thing about your role? Like what makes you excited and helps you push back from that burnout? Maybe, it's a moment, but what is it that you feel like motivates you?
Yes, hello. I think my team is my biggest motivator, even though I miss them and we're not seeing them in person every day like we were before, even in quarantine and doing Zoom calls. Like, the people that I'm managing and the skills that I'm able to like now pass on to them is the most rewarding part of my job. So I have 2 designers who assist in pretty much everything I'm working on. And yeah, they're my pride and joy. And I love like just being able to pass on all of the experiences that I've had and learn from them as well. And it's a great team of women who lift each other up and all have really great different passions. Yeah, my team. That's my favorite part.
Sorry guys, the buzzer is ringing in the apartment that I'm currently in, and that's so loud. I'm hoping they're just gonna stop ringing. Oh God, this always happens. I
City sounds.
Feel free to, yeah. Oh.
I would agree with what Molly said, and I would also say that for me, the readers, nothing is more rewarding than like putting months of research and interviews and long form reporting into a piece, feeling like you need to sleep for an entire week, but then getting a thoughtful email or DM from a reader saying that the writing connected with them, that the piece helped them, that it made them feel a little less alone. I think that that's something that's really special about identity, wellness, and sex and relationships, that it is so serviceable. And selfishly, as a writer, you know, when I write essays, I put so much of myself into them, and I shed so much skin. I allow myself to be vulnerable. And that's always a little bit scary whenever you do it, because the internet has a way of biting back when it wants to. So there's nothing more rewarding than knowing that a little bit of what you've shared has resonated with someone and allowed them to feel more capable because of, you know, your own bravery. And I think that that is, like I said, one of the most selfish parts of being a writer and an editor, because you're serving the reader, but they're also serving you, they're feeding you. And it really is like, it's a strange symbiotic relationship, because you know, it's not like you're writing in your diary, like you're writing something personal and then releasing it into the world, and you never know what's going to happen. So having it boomerang back is so magical and so rewarding.
And you mentioned a little bit of like that boomerang back. And sometimes I know like one of the biggest things about putting your creativity out is you don't know how people are going to receive it. If you've ever received any like negative feedback or trolls, the internet has all those trolls all the time actually. How do you protect yourself from that? How do you disconnect yourself from the feedback and remember that it's only an opinion that someone has?
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. I think that that is a time when I really, really lean on my team, and know that like I followed all of the protocol when it comes to publishing a piece. You know, I got it top edited, I got it copy edited. It's not like I just pressed publish and sent it off into the interweb. So definitely leaning on my team for comfort. But ultimately, you know, I like to joke that like I have no secrets left because I've already told them all to the internet. Like if you Google me, you will find out everything you could possibly know about me, from like, you know, like a weird hookup I had in college to like how I like to masturbate to my history with disordered eating. You will literally find out whatever you want from the internet because I've written about all of it. And I think like you have to risk trolls coming for you in order to like reach people with that level of vulnerability. Remember that the troll's reaction is more of a reflection of themselves than of you. Learn to use the block button frequently if it gets to you, and ultimately don't respond hastily when you're upset or angry. Don't develop Twitter fingers or Instagram DM fingers. If anyone says anything that upsets you, try to take 24 hours to digest it. Chances are when you wake up the next morning, won't bother you as much as it did when you first received the message. But yeah, I mean, it's always difficult, but ultimately I find it worth it because the scale of troll response to like reader response it's astronomical. Like the readers appreciate it way more than the trolls find it offensive or annoying.
I mean, I think that's an excellent answer. I feel like as art director, I am not like writing my personal stories, so there is less of that stake for trolls, but I do think I have experienced where I created something that I wasn't really proud of, and that's also difficult to deal with because it's like out in the open and maybe it's not exactly what you wanted. A lot of the time in branded content, you're working with other brands and there has to be like a compromise met, and that doesn't always meet like my own visual standard. So that's something that's been hard to deal with, but essentially, yeah, you just have to give it 24 hours, know that there's another project on the horizon, take every stumble as a learning opportunity and keep it moving, be true to yourself.
Yeah, and I will add that like I'm gotten to a point where I'll laugh when someone I don't know has something negative to say, but the only like comments that actually hurt my feelings are from people that I do know personally. Like,
Totally.
Yeah, the feedback of a close friend or family member is like way more important to me to some random, middle-aged white man living in a different country who I'll never meet. But yeah. And those have come. I've definitely like the random message from like an ex-friend from middle school or like the girlfriend of someone I dated in high school. I've definitely like gotten those weird messages, and those are the ones where I feel like I have the creepy collies. The random anonymous trolls. Exactly. That's when you use the block button.
Thank you. Well, just wanted to open up if anyone has any questions at all. Oh, sorry, getting ahead, right? I don't know why I keep having issues with this. Okay, well, find us on socials. But does anyone have any questions at all about anything about their job, BDG, Bustle, pitching, etc.? Anything? You could ask away or put it in the Q&A. Oh, stop sharing the screen. Mess.
Come on, guys, we don't bite.
Any question? Yeah.
I can start us off with a question. My name is Christine Monska. I'm from the Clubhouse Network. And first of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here with us today. We have a small group of alumni and friends who have joined us, and we're also going to be turning this into a recording, and so we can use it with a wider audience. So just wanted to say that first. Thank you. And my question is, what advice do you have for young people who are trying to explore their careers and really figure out what they want to do, whether it's networking or looking for an internship, while also perhaps having to be remote and really navigating the multiple pandemics that our world is really facing? Yeah, thank you.
I think my first advice is to try everything, be open to adapting your style. And I'm speaking more from a design perspective, but coming straight out of school, I thought my design aesthetic was one way, and just being very flexible to open that up and learn from other people, I think was a valuable lesson early on in my career, and not worrying so much about like, okay, I want to be exactly here at exactly this point in my life. Like everyone has different timelines. There are different avenues that your career might go. You might switch to a different industry halfway through. Yeah, it's the Wild West right now with quarantine, and people are figuring out how to create content in so many new ways. So I think just really being open to exploring those new avenues, new channels on social, and being a little scrappy with it is my advice.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine graduating right now. I would be so stressed out and terrified. So first of all, let me just say that I totally empathize with you guys, and that you guys are already 10 times braver than me, because I graduated out of the pandemic and was all stressed out just by that concept. So very well done. You are miles ahead. Yeah, I mean, I think really don't close yourself off to opportunities. Check in with yourself frequently. Ask, is what I'm doing making me happy? Can I explore something else? Do I feel like I need to stick to a path to prove something to myself or to others? Is pride getting in the way? Don't try to create a 5-year plan for yourself, because if you had asked me what I'd be doing 5 years ago, I would have said something completely different than talking to you guys on this call right now. And I'm so happy with how things turned out. So I try not to plan for the future too much, like in that regard. Don't compare yourself to other people's journeys. Don't look at your peers who do have jobs and say, I'm falling behind. You have no clue what's happening in their personal lives or how happy they are in their roles. Focus on yourself and not others, which is so hard. I totally get it. But know that it's not a competition, and that everyone is going to grow at their own pace, and the right opportunity will come along if you work hard and open yourself up to those opportunities. Network your butts off. Don't be afraid to like send that first message to an alum that you went to school with on LinkedIn, or to follow someone on Instagram or Twitter whose work you love and interact with their content, to pitch freelance stories if you're interested in writing. And even if you don't get a response or no, to keep at it so that you feel like you're improving. Join networking websites for college students. I know that there are a lot of like new sites and connective like brands that are being formed right now because of quarantine. I just talked to someone, I think it was called College at Home or something. I need to look at, but I just talked to someone who's creating like a really cool interface for students who are in college or just graduating to like attend panels and webinars and apply to exclusive like internship style 2-3 week programs. Take advantage of those because they're so unique to the time we're in right now. You have nothing to lose by putting yourself out there if the opportunity is one that interests you. Believe above all else that you're capable and deserving of anything you set your mind to. Don't talk yourself out of opportunities, but accept that things are sometimes outside of your control. And as long as you work as hard as possible, you have to know that you've done everything that you can. And if things aren't working out, it's not because of you and who you are. Be respectful and polite always, and know that you are not what you do. What you do and what your job is does not determine who you are as a person. And make sure to separate yourself from your work, because if you ground yourself in who you are and your identity and not what you do, you will always feel like you're leading a fruitful life, regardless of who your employer is or who signs your paychecks.
That was perfect. Well, if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to ask. But thank you, Iman and Molly. You both, gave us so much insight on what you do, but also I could see the passion that you have for what you do through the way that you speak about your role. And I think that that's something that, you know, everyone aspires to reach, where you find fruition in what you do. But I love what you said, Iman, about what you do is not who you are. And that's a great way to end it, just because what we do is what we do some part of our time, but it's not who we are. But I want you all to know that we are here to answer any questions about anything. We do have a fellowship program, an internship program, the one that Iman was a part of. It's currently on a pause, but hopefully we are going to see some more traction in the fall, maybe in the spring. And I'll share that information with Christine to share with you all if you are all interested. I will always send her any open roles that we have at BDG. But we're also here to answer any questions. I would say I could speak for myself, but consider me a part of your network. And I know Iman and Molly might feel the same way also. But yeah, thank you all. If there's anything else that you want to add or say.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, and I echo your sentiments of reach out. That's the hardest thing, I think, when you're right out of school or just younger and you don't know how to start that connection, but we're here for you. And find me on social, on LinkedIn, send me an email, and we can always keep the conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having us. Good luck, and let's continue the conversation. This doesn't need to be a one-time offer. Yeah, stay in touch.
Yeah.
Thank you. Also just want to add, we are having a Bustle Career Fair on September. Let me not forget the date, but actually share my screen and pull up the, I don't know what's going on here. Okay. I'll pull up the Eventbrite. This is the Eventbrite. You could go and register here. It is a free event that we're having. We'll have different editors join, and basically we're going to be talking a little bit on how to pitch Bustle, or how to break into the fashion industry. We'll have different teams join. So mark your calendars and register. We will have, this is the first of many. We're trying, seeing how it goes. And then from there, hopefully finding some more with different other teams too. But yeah, we would like to invite you all to this. So if you're interested, also feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about the event. I'm going to try to record. Every time I try to record, I always have a difficult time, but I'm going to try to record so that we could share it.
I saw Laura just put in a question about which programs we use for work. So for myself and generally designers, the Adobe Creative Suite is something that I use on a daily basis. So that includes Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, After Effects. It kind of depends on what you're creating. InDesign is mainly for layout and like print production, brochures, traditional magazines. At BDG, we're all digital, so I would say that I use Photoshop and Illustrator the most, as well as any company these days that you work for, there's different communication forms. So we use Slack. We also use Basecamp, which those are things, they're not hard to learn, but I do think that it's a big part of working on teams and being able to communicate with your other coworkers. Yeah, I think those are all the programs that I use.
Every media company you work for will have a different CMS that you work out of. If you're writing and editing, I've worked on in Copilot, in copy, blog spots. Right now we have our own CMS called Typeset that we work out of. And so depending on where you are, you'll have to learn that, but it's usually pretty intuitive. Besides that, we use, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Excel, PowerPoint, Photoshop for art sometimes, but luckily we have a wonderful design team that really helps us out with imagery because I'm not a very visual person. We also use programs like Grammarly to help us with grammar and editing when you're reading your own work before you send it to your editor. Slack and GChat are how I communicate with my team members and my writers. And yeah, I mean, I'm definitely forgetting things right now, but yeah, I use Twitter a lot for Apple News, Twitter, Chartbeat, and CrowdTangle to track the success of articles. Google Analytics is something that we unfortunately use because, oh my gosh, I'm so bad at it, but to track the success of articles. These are all those, everything formulaic is something that you can learn and will learn on the job. If you want to get a head start, you can, but I promise that everything will be explained to you as you go. And as a writer and editor, most of these programs are pretty intuitive and will not be too hard to grasp.
Definitely. And there's no shame in asking how to use a program, especially if it's something that is specific for the company that you're at. I agree. Like, we have our own CMS, Slack, like none of those things I was taught in school or expected to know. It's just something that you kind of find out on the job.
Totally. Like, y'all, I couldn't figure out how to embed a tweet earlier. It took me, I literally was refreshing the page and I thought I was going nuts. We just got a update to our CMS. Finally, after half an hour, I asked someone. It was so simple. Always ask. Always ask.
Yeah. Maybe Google first. I do. If I'm like, Google probably has the answer, but then rely on your teammates, ask your engineering team, figure it out, and everyone will be, thankful that you asked before your deadline.
Yeah, that's so true.
Awesome. Well, if there's any last minute questions, feel free to input them here. If not, be it. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us on this is our first virtual event with the Clubhouse Network since our partnership, and I'm super excited for what the future holds. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Iman and Molly. Thank you, Christine. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.